Hey, what's up everybody? BDF44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so I have a trade to announce with you guys. Rudy Gobert is headed to the Timberwolves for Malik Beasley, Patrick Beverly, Kessler, Jared Vanderbilt, Leandro Balmero, and four first round picks. Those picks are the Minnesota Timberwolves 2023 pick, the 2025 pick, and 2027 pick, all unprotected first round picks. And then the fourth pick is a top 5 protected in 2029. And that is the haul that has been reported. The We can look at the contracts here in terms of what Utah is getting in terms of flexibility. Malik Beasley is going to be making 15 mil. No, is that 15? I believe 15 mil on 1 year deal. So that's going to be expiring. They can trade at the deadline or let that come off the books. Kessler, I believe, is a rookie, so there was no salary announced for him. Vanderbilt is on a 3-year, $4 million contract, which is cap gold for the type of player that he is. He's going to want that. He's going to want that restructured. If I'm him, I definitely want that restructured with Utah. 3 years, $4 million. I'm not doing that with Utah if I have a choice, but I will. I do see him as part of the Utah rebuild, and a very, very massive part of the Utah rebuild, actually. And Patrick Beverly, of course, is on an expiring contract at 13 mil, so they can move that at the deadline, or just waive him and let him go to a real contender. And Palmero is also cap gold. I don't know the player, but he's on a 4-year deal worth $2 million, so that's always easy to maneuver. So Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns are now sharing a front court together. Needless to say, that's the best front court in the basketball right now in terms of rim protection. You can play Karl at the 4 in theory because he likes to play the perimeter more than you like for him to at the center position. I hope Karl knew they were doing this before signing his deal. Now, granted, for that amount of money, you can have me playing with anybody, but the point is, clearly, Karl-Anthony Towns sees himself as a center. Clearly, this is a move that's going to move him to the 4, unless they plan on moving Karl-Anthony Towns. I don't have any idea why they would do that, but then again, I also don't have any idea why they would give this much up for Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert, in my mind, and I don't know how the hell they've managed. I don't know how Utah did it, but they managed to make him look as if his contract was actually a legitimate for what he's bringing to the table. Rudy Gobert at this point has slowed down dramatically. Rudy Gobert is what I would consider to be a fossil in today's NBA because you literally cannot keep him on the floor for long periods of time when 3-point shots are ringing off because he can't guard the perimeter. And lately, it's been a situation where he couldn't score in the paint as well. So what you're doing is you are bringing to you a player who's aging, who has severe limitations offensively, who will not stretch the floor by any stretch of the imagination, and somebody who probably you cannot keep on the floor for the majority of the time, depending on the matchups. You just gave away your entire future to pair him up with somebody who's already a fantastic center, who already does the things that you need him to do, just so you can double down on rim protection, which will also have you doubling down on the slowness of the pace in which you play. You're going to be slower than anybody else because Rudy Gobert and Karl Towns, even though Karl Towns runs the floor very well for his size, now you're slowing him down significantly and rendering him only to the half court. As to which the half court is going to be interesting because now he's rendered completely to the perimeter, Karl Towns. Now, that's probably a good thing given the fact you want him shooting threes. He's the best 3-point shooter ever played the center position, if you ask me, or natural 3-point shooting center. But that doesn't necessarily mean that I want someone like Rudy Gobert in the paint at that rate, because that means you're paying him a certain amount. You've given up a certain amount for him, so that means you value him almost as equally as you value Karl-Anthony Towns. The haul that they gave up for Rudy Gobert is the type of haul you give up for a piece that you plan on building around. How do you plan on building around Rudy Gobert and Karl-Anthony Towns if they're both at max contracts and you've given away all your picks? This is a nightmare. This is a GM nightmare. Just so they can experiment with overwhelming rim protection and size. This is stupid. For all intent and purposes, if you're asking me what I think of this trade, this is the stupidest trade I've ever seen in my life. This trumps the Zubats trade by far. For one, if you want me to take Rudy Gobert's monstrosity of a contract, you're going to have to give me picks to take that thing, because I know he's a fossil and the game has passed him by literally. If you watch the playoffs, you understand that this dude didn't hardly score in the paint. His defense was lacking, and he's supposed to be a defensive player. And on top of that, you had issues keeping him on the floor for the same reasons we've already announced. I personally think Rudy Gobert, at this stage, may be a vet minimum player based on the circumstances I'm telling you. I literally think this. And it doesn't mean that he can't go off and go for 20 rebounds or something like that, block a billion shots, because he can still do that. But how much can I get out of him at that price? Given all that I've already told you. There are going to be times where it's in my best interest to sit him down. And you just gave away 4 picks for him. And Vanderbilt, a player that I could argue should be a part of what it is you do. Why? Because rim protection. What it is you brought this man in at some crazy amount to do. This is one of the worst trades, if not the worst trade I've ever seen in my life. Timberwolves, you set yourselves back probably 20 years doing this craziness. I'm exaggerating, but seriously, this is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. All right, so next thing, we're going to look at the Utah Jazz. I love what they did. I don't know how they did it, but I love what they did. They turned someone that I think can barely stay on the NBA floor right now into a haul that looks like a type of haul you would expect to get for Kevin Durant or some type of really, really, really high-level player. I mean, it's not taking into account his contract. That's the funny thing. The fact that this contract is very difficult to move in normal circumstances, they didn't even take that into account. I guess the Timberwolves think they're going to be able to trade that thing for the same haul. Let me tell you something. They wouldn't be able to trade Rudy Gobert for half of this right now. If the Timberwolves wanted to turn around and trade Rudy Gobert, they wouldn't get probably half of what it is they just did. That's how bad this was. Look, everybody is stuck in what they think Rudy Gobert is based on Utah's investment in him and the way he played defense in yesterday's era. But this ain't yesterday's era. Those bigs need to get out to the perimeter. He literally proved that he can't do that. And he ain't scoring in the paint. And they just paid a king's ransom for his bad contract. That is just the worst thing. This is the worst trade I've ever seen in my life, yo. I ain't even gonna front. This is the worst trade I've ever seen. Based on what he was when I last seen him, the contract, and ultimately the flexibility they gave up to receive. This is horrible. I don't know who the GM is in the Timberwolves, but A-Rod, this should not have been done, sir. This should not have been done. This in basketball is a very, very bad decision. I'm just being honest. And I ain't listening to no pundits. I don't know who would agree with this. Like I said, the rim protection is crazy. No one's going to be able to score on them. But unfortunately, they're also going to find out that all people are going to have to do is shoot threes on them. That's it. Just shoot the 3 against this team. That's it. Carl's going to be able to float around out there defensively, maybe. He's never been a defensive player anyway, ironically. You bring Rudy Gobert in because you think he's Defensive Player of the Year, but that's not who he's about to be for you. Especially not for as many years as you have him, 3 years. It's a no-go. It's a no-go. I don't like any of this. Any of this. Pat Bev was somebody you probably should have brought back. He was a part of your culture. Vandy's part of your culture. You just traded him for an experiment that decimated your future. It's the worst trade I've ever seen. I don't even know. Like, honest to God, it's the worst trade I've ever seen in my life. It trumps the Zubac trade by far. This is the worst one. So, we'll see what happens next. Obviously, now there's a spot open in Utah for guys to take cap space money from them. Utah can do whatever they want to do right now. Trade for KD if they want to with the equity they just received. They can create a super team right now based on the stupidity that the Timberwolves just gifted them with. Don't be surprised if they end up with the first pick in the draft next year or something like that. They can try to maneuver their way to get Victor themselves. He could totally be a Jazz now. I don't know what happens with Donovan Mitchell. Obviously, you expect him to be moved right away. But you just got to love what Utah's doing. I mean, it's an understatement. This gives you executive year if you ask me. Utah, like, whoever that is in Utah, you get executive year if you ask me for this move. This is ridiculous. Type of haul you got. And then to think, he turned Royce O'Neal into a first-round pick too with the Nets doing that dumb stuff they did. So I don't know what this guy has on the league, why they keep gifting him so much. It's like they are rolling out the red carpet for whoever that is. That's the GM of the Utah Jazz. They're literally gifting him so much beautiful stuff right now. If you can't tell what's going on here, Utah is being given a stimulus package. That's what's happening. Why? I don't know. But that's exactly what's going on here. So we'll see how it plays out. If the Utah Jazz turn into the Las Vegas team 5 years from now, I will look back on this. So that's what I got. My name is BDF44. I thank you all for watching.